When I bought my wife, Emily, the new car, I thought it was the most romantic thing I'd ever done. It was her dream model, sleek, silver, and fully equipped with safety features. I even upgraded it with a 360 degrees camera system, telling her it was for safety reasons. She hugged me that day like she hadn't in months. "You're amazing," she said, her eyes glistening. I didn't realize then that those cameras would one day destroy everything. For the first 2 weeks, everything felt perfect. She smiled more, stayed out late less, and even texted me during work like she used to. But then small things began to change. Her phone became glued to her hand. She'd leave the room when answering certain calls. And one evening, when she said she was meeting her friend Claire, something in her voice didn't sound right. That night, when she returned home, the smile on her face was different. Not happy, but guilty. I couldn't sleep. My mind raced. And then I remembered the cameras. The morning after Emily's dinner with Claire, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She seemed cheerful, humming as she made coffee, while I sat there pretending everything was fine. But inside, a storm was building. When she left for work, I opened my phone and logged into the car's tracking app, the one that linked directly to the built-in cameras. I hesitated for a few seconds. My finger hovered over the playback button. Then I pressed it. The footage began rolling. The first few minutes looked innocent. Highways, traffic lights, nothing strange. But when I checked the GPS log, I froze. The car wasn't anywhere near the restaurant she'd mentioned. Instead, it was parked outside a quiet house in a neighborhood we never visited. I zoomed in on the image. A man walked out the front door, heading straight toward the passenger side. My chest tightened as I watched him open the door and slide in. Emily was smiling, the same soft, affectionate smile I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. They sat there for a long time, talking, laughing. Then she reached over and touched his arm. I paused the video, my hand shaking. I wanted to believe there was a good reason. Maybe it was work-related, maybe an old friend. But why lie? Why say she was at a restaurant with Claire? I replayed the footage again and again until my heart felt numb. Then I noticed something else. She turned off one of the internal cameras before driving away, but she forgot about the front one. That was the moment I knew something was deeply wrong. For the next few days, I said nothing. I needed to be sure before doing something I couldn't undo. So I played the role, the trusting husband, smiling, texting her sweet things, pretending that everything was perfectly normal. But I watched. Every time she took the car, I checked the live feed. And every time I noticed subtle things. Her clothes were different, her perfume heavier, her smile brighter, the kind of smile that used to be for me. Then, on Thursday night, she said casually, "I'm heading to the gym for a late workout." "Okay," I said, forcing a grin. "Be careful." The moment the garage door closed, I opened the app. The GPS marker moved past the gym. My pulse spiked. Then it turned onto the same quiet street, stopping at that same house. This time, I didn't just watch, I recorded it. An hour later, I heard her car pull back into the driveway. I sat on the couch, lights off, TV flickering softly. My phone was in my hand. The video paused on a frame, showing her car parked outside that house. She walked in, surprised to see me awake. "Hey, you're still up?" she asked lightly, hanging her gym bag by the door. "Yeah," I said, calm but cold. "How was your workout?" "Good," she replied, avoiding eye contact. "Tough session tonight." I turned my phone toward her. The glow from the screen lit her face. The image of her car, parked in front of the mystery house. For a moment, she didn't move. Then her face went pale. "Emily," I said quietly, "who is he?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Tears formed instantly. It's not what you think," she stammered. But it was. That night, for the first time, silence filled our home louder than any argument could. The silence stretched between us like a knife. Emily's hands trembled as she sat across from me, eyes glistening but avoiding mine. "Then tell me what it is," I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice steady. She took a deep breath, then exhaled shakily. "His name is Ryan," she whispered. He's someone from work. It started as just talking. We get coffee after meetings, vent about deadlines, about life. I didn't mean for it to become anything more. Her words fell like stones, each one heavier than the last. So all those nights you said you were with Claire, I began. She was covering for me, she admitted, tears streaming now. I know it's wrong. I know what I did was unforgivable. I stared at the floor, trying to process it all. My mind replayed every small lie, every strange smile, every late-night meeting. The pieces fit too perfectly. Did you love him? I finally asked. She hesitated too long. That silence was my answer. I don't know, she said softly. It wasn't about love. It was about feeling seen again. You've been so distant, so busy. I made a mistake. Please, let's fix this. Her voice cracked, desperate now. But I couldn't even look at her. The woman I'd built my life around felt like a stranger sitting in my living room. I stood up and said quietly, I gave you that car to make your life easier, not to make lying easier. Then I walked out. That night, I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the truth was simple. Once trust breaks, love starts to fade. And no amount of explaining could glue it back together. I didn't go home that night. I parked near the beach, staring at the dark water while the waves broke against the rocks. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls, texts, voice messages, all from her. I didn't answer a single one. By morning, I had decided. I went back only to grab a few clothes and some files from my office. When I walked in, she was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas, eyes red from crying. Please, she whispered, standing up, don't do this. We can get help. Therapy, anything. I'll end things with him. I already have. I looked at her, and for a moment, I almost wanted to believe it. But the footage wouldn't leave my mind. Her smile, the way she looked at him, the way she turned off the camera thinking I wouldn't notice. It's too late, Emily, I said quietly. The cameras didn't ruin us. They just showed me what was already gone. She broke down, sobbing, clutching the edge of the counter like she was trying to hold on to something slipping away. I walked past her, out the door, and into a silence that felt both painful and peaceful. 2 weeks after buying her that car, I filed for divorce. I thought the footage would haunt me forever, but in a strange way, it set me free. Now, whenever I see that model car on the road, I don't think of betrayal. I think of lessons. That trust is worth more than any gift, and once it's gone, no amount of technology can bring it back. Sometimes love doesn't end with shouting. It ends quietly, in the reflection of a dashboard camera that sees the truth no one wants to admit. The following weeks felt unreal, like walking to the ruins of life I once knew. Every room in the house still carried her scent, her handwriting on notes stuck to the fridge, her shoes by the door. But all of it felt hollow now, like props from a story that had already ended. She tried to reach me again, long emails, late-night calls, even showing up at my office once. I didn't yell or get angry. I just looked at her and said, we can't rebuild something when the foundation's already cracked. That was the last time we spoke in person. I moved out of the house soon after, leaving her the car, the same one that recorded the truth. Ironically, she never drove it again. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe every time she sat inside, she saw a reflection in the lens that exposed everything. One night, I watched the footage one last time before deleting it all. Not out of revenge, not for evidence, but to close the chapter for good. I sat there staring at the final frame, her laughing in the car, unaware of the tiny light blinking above the mirror. A tear rolled down my cheek, not because I hated her, but because I still loved the person I thought she was. That's the cruel part of betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It makes you question your memories. Every laugh, every kiss, every I love you starts to feel like part of the lie. But as I pressed delete, I whispered, goodbye, Emily. The screen went black. And for the first time in months, I felt peace, the kind that comes not from forgetting, but from finally letting go. It's strange how quiet life becomes after everything falls apart. No more late-night texts, No shared morning coffee. No sound of laughter echoing through the house. Just silence, the kind that forces you to face yourself. At first, I hated it. Every small thing reminded me of her. The empty passenger seat, the untouched side of the bed, the faint smell of her shampoo in the bathroom. But slowly, the silence stopped feeling like punishment and started to feel like healing. I focused on rebuilding. I threw myself into work, spent time with friends I neglected, and even started running again. It wasn't about escaping her. It was about remembering who I was before the lies. One morning, a few months later, I got into my old truck, the one without any cameras, without memories, and just drove. No destination, no tracking, no footage. Just me and the open road. That's when it hit me. The cameras didn't just capture her betrayal. They also captured how far I drifted from the man I used to be. Always busy, always distracted, trusting that love could survive without attention. Maybe we both failed in different ways. But I learned something valuable. Trust isn't something you monitor. It's something you nurture. And once it's gone, no lens, no footage, no technology can bring it back. So now, when people ask me why I don't regret discovering the truth, I tell them this. Sometimes heartbreak is the only way to save yourself. And as I drove into the sunrise that morning, windows down and no cameras watching, I finally felt free. Months passed, and life quietly began to reshape itself. The pain didn't vanish overnight. It lingered, softened, then eventually became something else. Understanding. I remember sitting on a park bench one afternoon, watching couples walk by, laughing and holding hands. A small part of me ached, but another part smiled. Love wasn't the enemy. Deception was. I started writing down my thoughts, not to publish, not to post online, but just to remember. Each page became a mirror, reflecting the lessons I'd ignored while I was lost in the comfort routine. One entry stood out. You can't love someone properly while doubting them quietly. That sentence hit harder than any footage ever could, because deep down, I realized I'd seen the distance growing long before cameras confirmed it. I'd noticed the missed goodnight kisses, the sudden distractions, the fading laughter. I just chose to look away. We both had our share of mistakes. She strayed from honesty, and I strayed from presence. I never hated Emily. I hated what we became. In a strange way, the cameras didn't just record betrayal. They captured the end of the story that had already been slipping through my fingers. And while I couldn't change the ending, I could choose what came next. So I closed the journal, stood up from that bench, and walked away, not from her, but from the weight of what happened. Sometimes, letting go isn't about forgetting the past. It's about forgiving yourself for not seeing it sooner. One quiet evening, months after everything had settled, I got a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it. Then I read the name at the bottom. Emily, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just want to say thank you. You don't have to reply. Attached was a photo of the car, the same one I'd given her. It was parked outside a local charity office. A big sticker on the windshield reading, "Donated Vehicle." Her message continued. I couldn't drive it anymore. Every time I sat inside, I saw what I lost. I'm working with a youth program now, trying to make something good out of all the bad. I hope you're okay. You deserve peace. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger left in me, no bitterness, just a quiet, unexpected sense of closure. I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because some stories don't need new chapters. They just need to end gracefully. That night, I went for a drive in my old truck again. No GPS, no cameras, just the sound of the engine and the wind rushing through the windows. Somewhere between the city lights and the open highway, I realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay. It's about saying, I'm done carrying this. And in that moment, I truly was. The footage had ended our marriage, but it also started my freedom. A year later, life felt different. Quieter, simpler, but real. The kind of peace that doesn't come from pretending everything's fine, but from finally accepting what happened and learning from it. I'd sold a house and moved into a smaller apartment near the coast. My morning started with the sound of waves and the smell of salt in the air. I'd make coffee, sit by the balcony, and watch the sunrise, the same way I used to watch security footage. But this time, I was watching life instead. Sometimes, friends would ask if I missed her. I always gave the same answer. I miss who I thought she was. It wasn't bitterness, just honesty. One afternoon, while at a local cafe, I met someone new. Her name was Lily. She wasn't anything like Emily, not flashy, not overly charming, just genuine. She asked about my past, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to hide it. I told her the whole story, the car, the cameras, the betrayal, and the lessons that followed. She didn't flinch or pity me. She simply said, "You must have loved her a lot to be hurt that deeply." That line stayed with me, because she was right. Love, even when it ends, still shapes you. We didn't rush things. No secrets, no assumptions. Just two people learning how to trust again, one slow step at a time. And as I walked at her car that night, I couldn't help but smile. Not because I was falling for someone new, but because I finally understood something. You can't control loyalty, you can't record honesty, and you can't replay trust. But you can choose who deserves your heart next. And this time, I was ready. Time has a strange way of softening even the sharpest memories. A year and a half later, the pain had turned into something else, perspective. I didn't think about the betrayal every day anymore. Instead, I thought about how it changed me. There was a time when I believed love meant giving everything. No questions, no boundaries. But now I understood something deeper. Love also means protecting your peace, your dignity, and your truth. One evening, while driving home from work, I caught a glimpse of the same car model I once bought for Emily. For a moment, my stomach tightened. But instead of anger, I felt gratitude, not for what happened, but for what it taught me. I'd stopped living in rewind. Lily and I were still seeing each other, slow, calm, honest. No games, no hidden apps, no need for cameras. We talked about everything, even the uncomfortable parts. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I didn't need proof to trust someone again. Sometimes, the universe teaches you through loss what you refuse to learn through comfort. That car, that footage, that heartbreak, all of it led me here. To a quieter, humbler version of myself. Someone who no longer seeks control, just connection. And maybe that's the real secret. Love doesn't survive through surveillance. It survives through honesty, even when the truth hurts. I parked the car, stepped outside, and watched the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. For the first time since everything fell apart, I smiled. Not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd finally healed. It's strange how life always finds a way to come full circle. 2 years after that day, I found myself walking through a car dealership again, not to buy something extravagant, but to replace my old truck that had finally given out. The salesman smiled. "We've got a new model. Comes with built-in 360 cameras and tracking features. Very popular with couples." For a moment, I just stared at him, then laughed softly. "No, thanks," I said. "I've had enough cameras to last a lifetime." He looked puzzled, but I walked away smiling, because the truth was, I didn't need those lenses anymore. I'd learned that the real security in love isn't about watching someone. It's about trusting them enough not to. When I got home, Lily was sitting on the porch, reading a book. She looked up, smiling the kind of genuine smile that didn't hide anything. "So, did you find your new ride?" "Yeah," I said. Something simple. No cameras. Just honest. She laughed softly. "Honest, I like that." As we drove to dinner that evening, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. Older, calmer, wiser. The man who once needed footage to find the truth now trusted silence more than evidence. And as the sunset reflected off the windshield, I realized something profound. That car, the one I bought to prove love, had once destroyed everything. But the lesson it left behind rebuilt me into someone better. I reached over, took Lily's hand, and smiled. Some endings don't ruin your story. They simply redirect it toward the chapter you were always meant to write. A few months later, something unexpected arrived in the mail, a small envelope with no return address. Inside, was a short letter written in familiar handwriting. It was from Emily. I heard you're doing well. I'm glad. I'm remarried now, and we're expecting our first child. I wanted to thank you, not for what happened, but for how you handled it. You never humiliated me or sought revenge. You just walked away. That silence taught me more than any argument ever could. I wish you peace. I sat there for a long while after reading it. Not angry, not sad, just reflective. There was a time when that letter would have broken me, reopened every old wound. But now, it just felt like the final page of a book I'd already finished. I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder that life moves on, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of the need to rewrite the past. That evening, I told Lily about the letter. She listened quietly, then said something that stayed with me. Closure doesn't come from them, it comes when you realize you no longer need answers. She was right. So later that night, I went for one last drive by the ocean. No music, no destination, just the hum of the engine and the soft rhythm of the waves nearby. The stars reflected on the water, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. The cameras once showed me betrayal, but life, patient and quiet, showed me redemption. And as I drove away, the past finally stayed behind me. Years had passed since the day my marriage ended, but the memory no longer carried pain, only lessons. Time had done its quiet work, turning wounds into wisdom. I still lived by the coast, still drove that simple car with no cameras, and every morning I took the same route to work, passing the same stretch of ocean that once felt like my escape. Now it felt like home. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, I caught myself smiling at the reflection in the mirror. The man looking back wasn't bitter or broken anymore. He was grounded, steady, and free. Lily and I had built something honest. Not perfect, but real. We argued sometimes, disagreed, got frustrated. But there were no secrets, no shadows hiding behind screens or silence. We faced everything together, openly. One night, as we watched the waves crash in the distance, she turned to me and said softly, "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said. "If they hadn't, I wouldn't have learned what love actually is." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. The stars shimmered above us, quiet witnesses to how far we'd both come. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better. Peace built from truth, trust rebuilt through patience, and love reborn without fear. The man who once relied on cameras to see the truth now saw everything he needed right in front of him, not through a lens, but through clarity. And as the night breeze carried the sound of the sea, I whispered a final thought to myself. Some storms don't come to destroy your life. They come to wash away what was never meant to stay. It's been 5 years now since that chapter of my life closed, and looking back, I finally understand why it had to happen the way it did. Some truths only reveal themselves after the silence settles. The pain that once felt unbearable turned out to be the very thing that set me free. Free from illusions, from control, from the fear of being alone. I used to think losing Emily was the worst thing that could happen to me. Now I see it was the beginning of everything real. Lily and I eventually got married. Quietly, without grand speeches or cameras. Just a few close friends, a small ceremony by the ocean, and vows that came straight from the heart. No promises of perfection, just honesty. That was enough. After the ceremony, as we drove away, Lily laughed and said, "It's funny. You used to hate being recorded." I smiled. That's because I learned the truth doesn't need proof anymore. And in that moment, I knew I had finally made peace not just with her, but with myself. Every choice, every heartbreak, every lesson had led me here, to a love that didn't need watching, only trusting. So if there's one thing my story has taught me, it's this. Love built on fear will always fall apart. But love built on truth, even when it hurts, will last forever. As the waves rolled in behind us and the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt the final piece of my past drift away. The car with the cameras was long gone, but its memory remained, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Sometimes the footage that ends your marriage is the same one that begins your freedom.